Speaking of top chefs, so Stephanie Izard won Iron Chef Gauntlet. We have a new Iron Chef.
Yeah, I hope you didn't miss it. I hope you, because he just spoiled the hell out of that thing for you.
Yeah,
we
true.
saw last night, so you didn't spoil it for me, so that's good.
Yes. Oh, man. That's I need to make a list of the Iron Chefs. I think I've eaten at half of the Iron Chefs restaurants now, but they're just, Izard she's truly a phenomenal chef. Just amazing.
I didn't think she was going to do it. I mean, judging her from like the whole season, I'm like, there's no way that she's going to do it. You know, she was kind of hit and miss there for a little bit, but she killed Simon in cheese. How do you kill Simon in cheese? It just doesn't make sense.
She's amazing. Let's see here. We already have a question. James says, is that a hotel room you're in, Brent? Yes, it has all the markings of a classic hotel room. We have the everything in one area.
It's a hotel room in Disney, no doubt. And by the way, it's 92 degrees outside, and he's wearing a hoodie. So you go figure it out.
Well, that's how, conference rooms.
You're looking like
conference rooms. It's seriously 60 degrees in every conference room. So I go downstairs and you'll see people like huddled like this because they only wear T-shirts on the first day. And then by the second day, they learn you have got to wear like 2 or 3 layers. And it's got to be easy to peel off and put stuff back on because I'm going to go from here. I'm going downstairs. I'm going to meet Aaron Stellato in one of the conference rooms. That's going to be freezing cold. Then we're going to walk like 100 yards to a restaurant. There I'm going to have to take it off because it's going to be super hot.
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah, I think last year at PASS, I don't think I took off that jacket you got me.
No,
I had it on I think I'm literally the entire time. I even slept in it.
Totally me.
I still do sometimes when I want to remember the good days.
As opposed to the bad days of the broken chair.
Yeah, I'm all wobbly.
So I was going to say, you haven't unpacked the new one yet, have you?
I have. It came totally assembled. But you have to like adjust stuff, and I didn't want to be sitting here adjusting stuff and like get like ejector seated on camera. Hit the wrong button and like tip over.
Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Darling's new chair probably cost more than the laptop that you're using. Yes. It's probably going to last 5 years longer than that as well.
I don't know, man. When with the kid, things don't last. Things
dribbling cheese
nothing
sauce
lasts
all over
with
everything.
Children.
Yeah. Everything is temporary. Oh, so folks, if you want to ask questions, feel free to fire away. We will go start cracking open your technical questions and see what we get here. Graham says, goodness, he's got a big long one. He says, that came out entirely incorrectly.
Whoa!
Says, yeah, well, just as soon as it came out of my mouth, I'm like, that's not, and that makes it even worse. Graham says, SQL 20. So related note, yesterday at the conference, Buck Woody's walking around with this purple umbrella that looks unbelievably phallic, and everyone would see it and just go, wait, what is that you're holding? And then he would take the cover off, and that made it even worse. It was, no, put the cover back on, Buck. Graham says, SQL 2016 is channeling ET, and it wants to phone home. It's
Uh-oh. He be froze.
We have a frozen Brent.
Potato.
I don't think he's coming back from that one. All right.
For information. I know there's ways to disable it thanks to You talk about this.
And he kept going. Look at that. That's amazing.
Did I?
Completely what potato, man?
Yeah.
Oh, no. Is it?
You stopped here and didn't come back until you were here.
You just started reading the question, so you got to start from scratch, buddy.
The good news is you get a second take.
Oh, Eric, you should ask the questions, and then that way it won't be so bad. You want to ask the questions?
Sure. Yeah. I don't know what this question is still, though. I've read it a few times, and I still don't know what it is. SQL Server 2016 phones home, tells Microsoft what you're doing, gives it some telemetry, and something just fell, and I don't know what it was. Send some information about usage and feature usage statistics back to Microsoft. So they
maybe I should read the questions.
You know, it's not nice. Graham wants to know if there's a way to disable telemetry in 2016.
You would think in the year like 2017 it would be easy for us to do group video chats without incredible lag time. We're even all in the same United States, but still no. Microsoft says there's some stuff you can do with GPO to disable telemetry on standard and enterprise. The trick is they don't tell you what port it's leaving out on. They don't make it easy to track the communications between SQL Server and phoning home. So the best you can do is follow what that KB article says and just kind of hope for redemption there.
All right. Let's see here. Mary has a question about where you put your files. Mary says she knows it's a good practice to put the log files on separate drives from data files. But what about for tempdb? Where should that log file be placed for optimal performance?
I don't know if I've ever seen tempdb's log speed be a problem, and if I did, I don't know how I would find it.
I guess my thing is that, like, logging in tempdb is pretty well optimized. There's a lot of, like, tempdb doesn't care about, taking snapshots the way it does for, like, regular log files. It just cares about being able to roll back. It doesn't care about needing to roll forward, because when SQL Server restarts, tempdb just starts fresh anyway. So I've never, again, with Brent, I've never seen tempdb's log be a problem, but usually when there's an underlying drive problem, it's affecting all of it's affecting the data files and the log files. So, I would just say if you have tempdb IO issues, then your problem isn't where the log file is. Your problem is something bigger.
And when you built servers, did you put tempdb on a separate log, or tempdb's log file on a separate drive, or did you just put them with the data files?
With the SAN, it just didn't matter all that much. I guess from it would be more of an availability issue. So, like, if tempdb's log or data file is ever started growing massively, I wouldn't want one or the other to be impacting the other groups. I wouldn't want the log file to grow out of control and mess up the data files. I wouldn't want the data files to grow out of control and squish the log file. So I would separate it for that, but I never separated it for performance. It was more of a precautionary thing.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, this is what fell, and it was incredibly distracting. And it threw me off for a minute.
It's your spirit animal, or
it's a flamingo that my kid made me in her pre-K class, and it fell. And what the hell is that? Because it was right near my hand.
Don't fly.
There you go.
I know, they just fall.
As we now know.
It just crashed.
It was like the opening of Miami Vice, right?
A lot like that.
I missed that. That was nicely done. I have to hand it to you.
Wind blowing through my hair and all that. Clark asks, in SQL availability groups, because there's no other kind, are there any benefits other than cost of running a file share as a third node versus just having 3 or more SQL nodes to have a quorum?
Oh, man, I just did a quorum module here at Intersections. Normally, I don't like having any extra nodes in the cluster that aren't involved in SQL Server, just, more complexity if something goes wrong. I would just use a file share witness. Just use a file share witness pointed at that. And then Windows, starting with Win 2012 R2, Windows will automatically take away a vote from the file share as well, so you don't have to worry about it going into an even number of voters. I'm simplifying a lot there, but just that I would rather use the file share.
All right. Well, there we have it. Deborah asks, or unless it's Deborah, I don't know. I don't want to make any. Let's see. Deborah asks, is the last execution date stored persistently someplace? I know about looking at sys.dm exec procedure stats and its limitations.
Ooh, what do you want to use it for? Yeah. What are you looking to find out? It is. I like where she's going. proc stats, but you probably even remember the field names by heart, given how many times you've been in there.
I don't know.
Well, what have you been playing with lately?
Because I'm trying to think like persistently, and I'm trying to think prior to Query Store, and I don't have a good answer on prior to Query Store. Even Query Store flushes data out, so that's not even 100%. So
yeah,
unless if you're on two, go ahead.
No, I was going to say if you're looking to audit whether or not something's used or not, like the easiest way to do is create a table and of your own, and then add a line to the end of the stored procedure that just either inserts a record into it or updates the existing record into it. But the instant that you know that it's actively used, you need to get that line the hell out of the code.
Makes sense to me. All right. Robert asks a funny question. And it's funny because of the way we feel about exams in the first place. Robert asks, do you have any feedback on the book Exam Ref 7761, Querying Data with Transact SQL, first edition by Erik Ben-Gan? Do you have a site you go to for feedback on technical titles? I usually just read Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
As far as that book goes, I don't think it's been updated, and it's a fairly old book at this point.
Really old. Yeah.
So it's sick. Well, I have to move some stuff around here. Don't mind me.
Don't fall off your chair.
Look, pal. If I didn't do squats, I'd be screwed. This book is much newer. I think it's from 2014?
I think so.
Yeah, 2014. It's much newer. It's full of great stuff. It's probably a lot of the same stuff, but just updated for newer versions as well. As far as other books, geez. I mean, I usually just read Amazon reviews or, see what other people are reading.
Mm-hmm. Ask the author.
Too, I think, has to do it. Right. Well, yeah. I was going to say that plus two, we've been around in the community long enough that we kind of go by author names, probably.
Yeah.
Where you go, the author name that you hit in this one, he is awesome. Erik Ben-Gan is a genius. And so I would just tend to gravitate towards the latest book that he's written. That's the one I would go for.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you asked something else, which was the exam prep. None of us in here are currently certified, I don't think. We're all certified.
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. My PMP certification just lapsed.
Yeah.
Certification dropouts. And if Tara was here, the problem with cert exams is that they measure what the marketing team wants you to know, not what you do in your daily job. So if your goal is to pass an exam, get an exam prep book. But if you want to learn SQL Server just because you're interested in that topic, get Erik's latest book, and it'll be phenomenal.
Even as far as, just whatever books goes, Erik has two other great books. They were written for 2012, but they hold up pretty well today. There's like this thing, I believe it's T-SQL Fundamentals and High Performance Windowing Functions, or Window Functions. I always forget if the ing goes on there or not. But High Performance Window or Windowing Functions for SQL Server 2012, and they're both fantastic reads. Like you'll learn a lot even if you already have a pretty good footing in T-SQL. And then if you want to get those two and then work your way up to that Bible, it's a pretty good few months you have ahead of you of reading stuff.
That's true.
Well, that, and there's always the documentation. I usually go straight to there, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that you could actually glean from just reading the docs. That's me.
I have much worse luck reading technical documentation than you do, Richie. When I read technical documentation, I look at the full syntax where they have like all the brackets and parentheses and comma stuff, and I blank out, and I just scroll right down to the examples, and then I think, that makes sense.
So lame.
Yes, drop all databases.
So
cool.
lame. I have another question. I have a question for Brent, actually.
Yes.
So you're at a Microsoft conference-ish, right? You have Microsoft employees there, and you're walking around with an AWS hoodie on.
And it was worse than that. When I got dressed this morning, the shirt underneath said Google Cloud, and I walked to the door, and I take the one look at the mirror before you go out, and I'm like, oh no, I don't think I should push that quite that far. But I'm like, it's a really comfortable shirt and it's a really nice hoodie. And for some reason, Microsoft doesn't seem to send me free clothes anymore. I don't know why that is.
I don't know why that is either. And let me just scratch my head a little bit. I don't know. If you would have wore that Google Cloud thing, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh, there's Troll Boy trolling again.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so I was like, I felt bad because I didn't have any other sweatshirt. I have like a Kekura sweatshirt, and it's in my my other suitcase. But so yes, and that made me remind me that when I go to conferences, I need a different set of hoodies.
Well, when I spoke at our local day of Azure and spoke on Amazon Azure Functions, and I was wearing that exact hoodie during the whole time. So
yeah, it's really nice.
This is what you get for picking sides and wearing tech gear. You always have to worry about what you're wearing. It's worse than like gang territory.
Yeah, I think the only way to win is like wear Atari or Nintendo gear.
Plain black T-shirts.
How could you be wearing Nintendo and not an Xbox One? How dare you, Brent? How dare you?
You're already screwing up.
Yeah, that would be a problem. Yeah.
And you have a MacBook? Oh, look at that. You are so oh, look at that. And an iPad is so anti-Microsoft.
Watch, iPhone, yeah, anti-community, you name it.
Brent's going to get shot at one of these conferences.
Shot bad looks. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. We should get back to questions, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe.
Sure.
Don asks, is there a way to calculate the total number of bytes returned from a SQL query in SQL Server 2014? A developer is saying that my query is returning too much data and it is causing the web page to load slowly. I would tell your developer to implement a paging strategy then.
Yeah.
And when you say paging strategy, talk more about what you mean.
I mean, when people want to look at a reporting query, typically they don't need a million results. No human is going to sit there and consume probably more than 10,000 rows of data and be able to look at it and come up with anything meaningful from it. When I talk about a paging strategy, I mean return 50 rows at a time, and if you need 50 more rows to figure something out, then you click load more rows and get 50 more rows, and then 50 more rows as you need things. Your developer or DBA isn't necessarily wrong that your query is returning too much data, and I'd stop trying to measure it in bytes. I'd measure it in how much what you actually need and what you can actually consume when you look at this data.
Rows times columns.
Yeah.
If you wanted to really calculate the size, the really crappy way to do this is take the exact query and right above the from, put into, and then put a table name. So like select stuff into whatever the table name you want is, and then you can look at the size of the table afterwards. But just I take the simple way too, rows times columns. How many rows are you bringing back and how many columns are you bringing back?
Right. And the other side of that is how frequently are you calling that? If you're calling it every time the page loads, ask yourself, do I need to call this every time the page loads? Can I cache this data somewhere so I don't have to make that SQL call? Someone once told me the cheapest SQL call that you could make is the one you don't make. I think it was Erik. He's smarter than Brent.
Great post, Erik.
But caching helps a lot because you're no longer querying the database. And then you could actually say, yeah, maybe our cache is huge now because we're pulling back way too many rows as opposed to calling directly from SQL. And now you're doing all that stuff across the wire. Oh, God.
I know Richie's going to be jealous of my rental car this week. Toyota Prius.
No.
Every now and then I switch and play for the other team.
Yeah, just so you know, I actually valeted my car just so the valet knew I was driving a convertible Mustang. That's.
Can you please take my convertible Mustang?
Can you please park it out front? And I'm going to walk around it a few times.
It's right. And could you, when you come and get it, could you swing it around a couple times so people see it?
Do some donuts.
Yeah. And say, the Florida Mustang is here.
Not even a GT, people. I mean, seriously.
Sad day. All right. Graham says he read somewhere, doesn't say where, he does not cite his sources, but Graham says he read somewhere that CHECKDB should be done on tempdb. Why?
We used to have it in part of SP Blitz too, because I'm like, hey, look, anytime you find any database errors anywhere, you probably want to know. And tempdb is often on a different set of drives. These days, a lot of people are doing tempdb on local storage and flash storage, stuff like that. It doesn't do in-depth checking the way that it would on a user database. The reason that we finally pulled it out of SP Blitz was if you use the default maintenance plans, SQL Server actually skips. The maintenance plans skip tempdb. So I'm like, all right, I got to stop warning people. Yeah.
Ola Hallengren's system databases store procedure. Oh, excuse me. Also skips tempdb.
Yeah.
And it's actually kind of funny if tempdb ever does go corrupt. I think what was the way to fit? You have to shut down SQL, delete the files, and then start SQL back up. Because if it yes. Even though tempdb reinitializes everything, if you don't delete the files, it'll just keep using
the same one again.
But that doesn't help if your storage is zapped, because
right. If you have crappy SSDs,
yeah,
it'll keep getting re-corrupted.
So I don't think I'd haul off and start running CHECKDB on tempdb, but
if you get corruption errors out of tempdb, then that's when you start. God.
Because I don't know if you remember back at DBA days what happens when tempdb is corrupted.
You should explain. That was phenomenal.
Yeah, so back at DBA days, we broke tempdb and we ran a store procedure that would overwrite some page data in tempdb and just kind of insert stuff in a loop and crap things up real bad. And when you do that, SQL Server stops and restarts. And if you happen to make that store procedure an agent job that runs at startup, SQL Server will actually not start back up. They're still trying to restart that box. So there's a lot. So when tempdb does become corrupt, you know immediately because your SQL Server ceases to exist. It just goes, waves goodbye.
And if you want the code to do that, search on the site for Dell DBA Days tempdb, and Erik's code to do it, to kind of auto-corrupt databases is out there. We had a lot of fun with that.
Also, the one that randomly changes database settings is out there as well. That was a lot of fun to write and run. We got to do that stuff again.
Some days we use our forces for good, but just not usually.
Not when we have millions of hardware dollars from someone else. Then we're like, oh, let's do it. Like shitting off fire extinguishers in the server room.
That was the barbecue pork. That's
Oh. Which probably caused us to make more bad decisions.
There was lots of bad decisions after the baked beans. The baked beans were probably the bad decisions, and then it just cascaded all the way down there.
We were just all meat drunk, and strange things happened. All right, Renee asks an interesting question. This is a question that I would actually like answered myself. Is there a way to limit tempdb usage by default for each session, kind of like an available percentage that can be used? Resource Governor doesn't give such an option, or at least I didn't find it.
You know how you would do it? So the answer is no. I mean, but how would you do it? My first thought was I would count the allocations. So if you run SP who is active, out of Mechanics excellent free tool, SP who is active, it will show you tempdb allocations by session. You could read his code to see where he gets it from. I don't think it's in exec requests or something. And then you could kill sessions that are using more than a certain amount of space. Man, that sounds like a bad idea. That sounds so bad. Because especially what if they're doing inserts, updates, and deletes, and they just happen to allocate some space as that's running. That seems horrifically bad. But I love it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's, especially if they need a temp table, or if they do a hash join, or anything sorts off in tempdb, and you just start killing sessions because that happens. It's like the user isn't even doing anything bad on purpose, and you're just sitting there murdering their queries. Brent's video paused in like the least flattering face.
Potato. Wi-Fi potato. This week's office hours is brought to you by Disney. Disney's Wi-Fi signal at the Swan Hotel is top quality pigeons ferrying matchbooks full of TCP/IP packets back and forth.
In other words, it is barely brought to you by Disney.
Just so you know, Swan and the Dolphin are not owned by Disney.
They are now. Disney bought them.
Disney did buy them.
Yes.
I don't know why they haven't torn them down yet then.
I know, especially when you see this Wi-Fi signal. Oh, God, man.
Deborah asks another question. Is there a way to set a timeout from the server side? We have developers on Management Studio on another tool who never seem to log off. They just don't go away. This developer herpes will not leave your server. It will not go away.
Well, the bigger question is it a problem? Is it, because it's kind of okay if people log in and never log off.
It's not doing anything. It's a lot like
I used to have.
Oh no, sorry. Your camera went other dimensions, so I started talking to cover for the space. But go ahead. You're back.
Yeah. No, potato. I was going to say I used to have a BlackBerry Enterprise server, and it would leave connections open, but they would have locks open, and so I would just go through and kill them every night at midnight. If the client is BlackBerry Enterprise server and there's locks open, just kill it. But that's also because I didn't really care whether my executives got their email or not, because really the less that they know, the better off that they are.
If they don't get the email that the server's down, the server isn't down.
Right.
No one's waking you up at 4 in the morning now. I would actually have that as a condition. If this server goes down, kill the best connection so no one can get in. No one can get an email about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's see here. Let me think of a way to paraphrase this one. Yes. So John asks, he recently joined a company that's using FileStream to serve up files in SQL Server. He read that this is not a good idea, but he's not familiar with other options and how you would serve files via SQL Server.
Well, you had to deal with this a lot in your last job. You're dealing with tons of files and databases. So yeah, what the vendor end up doing there?
Well, storing blobs in the database is a pretty terrible idea. No one wants you editing PDFs and stored procedures. It's not good. So usually what people will do is they will just start having pointers and file system pointers in tables, and then the application will use that pointer to open up a file as appropriate.
Yes.
So if you have like a viewer of some sort, let's just stick with PDFs and say you have a PDF viewer that works by hitting the database and looking at stuff. It'll just follow the path to the PDF file that's stored in the database. It'll do some lookup there, and rather than using FileStream to pull the file up, it'll just go to the file system where that path points to and grab the PDF from there.
Now, Richie, you're working on projects these days that do a lot of files and file handling, and that we need to keep around for stuff like Paste the Plan. So how are we doing it for Paste the Plan?
That's it. That's exactly how we create some sort of pointer, tells us where it is, and then the application goes and does whatever it needs to get to it. Now, our first cut of Paste the Plan actually stored all the files inside the database. And then we decided that was a horrible idea, but it was a proof of concept, so it kind of worked for that. And that was one of the first things we removed and just put in where the pointer to where it is. This is the path to where the file is, and then you could go and get it yourself.
We finally read our own blog posts about getting blobs out of the database.
Well, I mean, see, the thing is, it's super simple. Right? So especially in this case, we're using DynamoDB, which is NoSQL. It's just super simple to get something up and running and shove it into a database. I don't even have to convert it to binary stream or anything like that. You just dump it and it's there. Yeah, but when you're talking about, especially the cloud, now you're talking about I got to pay for storage and I got to pay for transfer data. I got to pay for all this other stuff. Just storing that kind of stuff just doesn't make sense. So we store that in S3, a system designed to store files, and we just kind of pump it out of there.
We all know that cloud storage ain't the fastest thing in the world.
We don't need it to be, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we could just...
But someone else might.
Someone else might. You got to do your own testing on some of that stuff, but we don't need it to be the fastest thing in the world.
All right. I think this last question is going to kill us on
at the keynote. No, go ahead. Potato.
I hate to use the analogy again, but it's like The Martian. Brent's like 18 hours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, lag back behind. I'm calling you from the future.
It's like, don't eat that piece of meat that was on the ground. Ben asks, what is the most efficient way to transfer 2 terabytes of data from on-prem to Azure Cloud IaaS infrastructure?
Man. I was actually, I asked Cecil this question yesterday because we do a podcast away from the keyboard. We want to take all of our raw audio files and our project files. We want to put them in the cloud so that I don't have this hard drive, which is sitting right here, always there in case it falls or whatever. I can't figure out a really great way. We were just talking about it. We don't have a really great answer. I think there's some command line tools that kind of help out with some of that stuff. There was some .NET libs that help out with some retry logic and all that other good stuff. But I don't have a good answer on how to upload large amounts of data into the cloud.
2 terabytes, man. That's...
Yeah. Now, AWS has a great way to do it. They have their, I think it's called a snowball, where they actually send you
yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, a box. You plug it into your network. You put all the files over there. You send the box back, and then they plug it into the cloud. So that is their kind of solution to their SneakerNet solution to that.
I miss SneakerNets, token rings, all that fun stuff.
And Brent quit. Brent quit. There he goes.
Yeah. Brent is giving up on this one, sticking a fork in it. But that's okay, because so are we. It's close enough to 12:45, and, well, I don't know.
And I'm going to keep working on that.
I'm not a good answer.
Azure thing. Because I want to know the answer to that. I want to be able to upload files pretty regularly to the cloud. I'm going to start trying some tools and try to figure that out. The problem is that it's complete. My upload speeds are trash. Yeah. And it just slows everything down here locally. Yeah. So I got to do everything overnight.
I can only imagine. But I know that there's some like data migration assistant, I think it's called, Azure Data Migration. But I don't know how much that. I don't know how. I've never used it, so I couldn't tell you that it's like the greatest thing in the world. Anyway, that brings us to close enough to 12:45. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining Brent, sort of.
Kind
Partial of. Brent. Kind of. You got Brent, a brief Brent. We will see you next week, hopefully with less technical difficulties. Goodbye.